Hello, everyone. It's great to be an astrophysicist, as we realized after watching Interstellar. It's also not bad to be a nerd, as the creators of The Martian have shown us. Perhaps it was difficult to imagine that the main character in the next space film would be a female linguist. However, the division between humanities and exact sciences has become firmly entrenched in our minds. Humanities are related to human activity, and, in the minds of many techies, they are also considered useless. But in Arrival, a humanitarian scientist uses his knowledge to find a common language with another life form, and a physicist finds himself on the receiving end. It turns out that seemingly useless linguistics has turned out to be more useful than accurate and reliable physics. How can this be? There are a lot of new and mysterious elements in the film Arrival that both the humanities and the sciences have to deal with. I think most viewers will be primarily concerned with the ending of the film, but first I need to dive a little deeper into linguistics. Circles and closed cycles are found throughout the film. The very structure of the story is cyclical, starting with Louise Banks's past and ending with her future. The heroine tells us about these events in the past tense, but in the final scene, it becomes clear that the beginning shots depicted her future. For Louise, time has closed in a cycle after she begins to understand the language of the heptapods. Their time is also cyclical, as they talk about the future as if it were a sure thing. They know they will need the help of Earthlings in 3,000 years. This is how they approach the concept of death. When one heptapod dies, its partner tells it that it is in the death stage. For humans, death is a final point, an end, with nothing beyond it. In contrast, for heptapods, death is not just a point on a timeline, but a process, a phase in a cycle. Their writing is circular. Louise Banks has noted that the aliens use a nonlinear approach to spelling, meaning that their writing doesn't involve creating sentences from words sequentially, but rather words from sounds and letters. The logogram, the basic unit of the language, expresses a complete thought. This is why it can be difficult for people used to expressing their thoughts through individual words to understand this language. The key to understanding the significance of circles and cycles in the film lies in a conversation between Louise and her daughter, Hannah. Louise explains that Hannah's name, Bolindrome, means that no matter which direction you read it, it will still be the same. Similarly, time has two directions for Louise, just like her daughter's name. In a conversation with Ian, Louise mentioned Sepper-Whorf's hypothesis on linguistic relativity. This hypothesis is studied by philology students in their first year of study, but for most people, these words mean little. However, the hypothesis itself is quite simple. It's clear that our consciousness creates language, but Sapir and Whorf suggested that there is also the opposite effect. The language we speak can influence our consciousness. Speakers of different languages see reality differently, and even divide objects and phenomena differently. From this perspective, each new language we learn can help us expand our understanding of the world slightly. In the movie Arrival, the idea of linguistic relativity is illustrated by the fact that some scientists are unable to fully integrate the language of the hypopods into their understanding of the world. Their perceptions are limited by their own linguistic framework. As a result, the Chinese understand the phrase offering weapons literally and begin preparing for action. Louise Banks, on the other hand, realizes that the word weapon can also refer to other things. She refrains from jumping to conclusions until she has fully grasped the logic behind the hypoptic language. Louise has an advantage over scientists from other countries in that she puts the scientific method above everyday logic. This allows her to go further than anyone else and see beyond the earthly picture of the world. Other scientists, on the other hand, approach the problem of extraterrestrial languages with their usual earthly standards, which is not appropriate. They cannot abandon their human ideas about the world, and this hampers their progress. For this reason, Ian Donnelly's research is not as significant as Louise's discovery, despite its importance. It is a funny paradox that we used to think the language of mathematics was universal and could be applied to all phenomena in the universe. But scientists state that the aliens do not understand terrestrial algebra. Louise's knowledge proves to be more valuable than Ian's mathematical approach. Her strong point is her analytical thinking. She faces an incredibly difficult and unconventional task that can only be solved by completely abandoning any comparison with terrestrial languages. As the story progresses, Louise delves deeper into the heptapod language and begins to dream in it, allowing her to understand time in a way that the heptapods do. This deep dive into the language allows her to fully understand the time concept of the aliens. Why does the film Arrival seem so relevant? It seems that aliens have not yet landed on Earth, and there is no immediate need to save the world. However, the main challenge faced by Louise Banks and other scientists is communication with the heptapods, which is a communication between different cultures. At first, scientists establish close contact and try to solve a shared problem. But then, the incorrect interpretation of heptapod words leads China and Russia to withdraw from the effort. Why did the heptapods need this global collaboration? It's difficult for me to say. They could have contacted Louise Banks directly and shared their knowledge with her. Instead, each country where the heptapod vessel landed received only a small portion of the text, 1/12. The task of mankind was to put this text together. But people did not succeed in their task. It would seem that it would be much easier for beings of the same species who speak similar languages to understand each other. But people failed to reach an agreement. Louise Banks and the heptapods managed to do it, though. In the first 5 minutes of the movie, we learn about the whole story of Louise's daughter Anna's life and death. The frames are rapidly changing, and Louise's voice accompanies us as we travel through the memories of a dead girl. To be more precise, it seems like memories to us. This is the director's main trick, to make us believe that the events in the film take place after Anna's death. However, in the finale, we find out that this is not the case. The first point on the timeline of the film is when the heptapods arrive on Earth. This is where the story begins. Louise and Ian, along with their team and scientists from other countries, are exploring the language of these aliens and trying to understand their purpose for coming to Earth. At first, representatives from all states actively shared their successes with each other. However, after a while the connection was lost, and Louise made a significant breakthrough, leaving her colleagues behind. Louise Banks, the first among Earth scientists, fully understood the logic and structure of the heptapod language. One of the main features of this language is its non-linearity. Heptapods perceive time not as a linear sequence, but rather as a circular pattern. This concept is reflected in their language, and when Louise speaks in the language of the heptapods, she also understands that time is non-linear. I want you to experience this moment as fully as possible. Louise doesn't have the superpower of time travel like some kind of superhero. She is just beginning to see time in a different way. In human consciousness, time starts at a certain point and continues to another point. Therefore, the concept of time in human language is linear. Our present is located between these 2 points. For a heptapod, however, the past, present, and future are all points on a circle that you can move freely between, not just from one point to the next. Therefore, the heptapods have knowledge of what will happen in 3,000 years. Louise, realizing how the heptapods perceive time, begins to see her own future. With this new understanding of time, she manages to communicate with General Chan, who is the greatest threat to the heptapods' mission on Earth. This is shown in the film as a vision or flashback, where General Chan from the future reveals the details of their conversation that will take place in the near future. In particular, he shares his phone number with Louise and transmits the last words of his deceased wife to her. Louise, in the present, uses this information from the future to call the general and convince him not to open fire. In the film, her Chinese language comment remains untranslated. General Chan's wife's last words are translated as, "War does not bring winners, only widows." After returning from the heptapod ship, Louise says something else that is important. "I realized why my husband left me," she says to Ian, and he wonders, "Were you married?" It was not, but it will be. On the ship, Louise discovered her own future. She would marry Ian and have a daughter, Anna. Anna would die of cancer, and Louise knew this before she was even born. Louise knew she wouldn't tell Ian about her vision when he suggested having a child. She knew she would still have the courage to tell him later, but the discovery would be too difficult for Ian. She knew that Ian would leave them, and she would be alone to see Anna on her final journey. Louise's decision may seem strange to some. Choosing to marry a man she knows will leave her, and to have a child with him, knowing she will outlive him, may seem like blind resignation to fate, rather than a conscious adult choice. However, this is her free choice. Despite knowing how many sad events lie ahead, knowing the pain her choice will cause her and Ian, and knowing her daughter will die, Louise chooses to live her life and enjoy the happy moments with Ian and their daughter.